Hello, I'm Harold, and I'm recording this part later than the part that you just, that you haven't seen yet, but that comes next in this introduction to the video here. And I said I wasn't going to do any more DRO videos, but then I discovered I had one that I didn't upload, and I thought a lot about it. I was accused of making poor instructional videos, and I had thought, whoa, wait a minute, this is not an instructional channel, and I never intended to make any instructional videos. I guess the DRO videos are semi-instructional, but I never meant to slip into that. The functions I show in these DROs, that's the first time I ever did them too, right along with you guys. But anyway, so it may not be the best video in the world, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make oval bolt holes with the DRO. And also, I think that maybe we'll just have a redneck joke today. Before we get too far into the redneck joke, I heard something, read it actually here the other day. It seems a Nepalese teenager, Pushkar Nepal, can kick himself in the head 134 times in 60 seconds. It must really come in handy. Okay, let's get down to Bubba. Bubba, every now and then Bubba likes to get himself a little higher education, and so he's decided, him and his buddy decided they weren't getting anywhere in life, and they should go to college to get ahead, So Bubba went in to see the counselor who told him to take math, history, and logic. What's logic, Bubba says. The professor tells him, well, he says, let me give you an example. Do you own a weed eater? I sure do, says Bubba. And the professor says, then I can assume using logic that you have a yard. That's real good, said Bubba. The professor continues on. He says, logic will also tell me that since you have a yard, you also own a house. And that impresses Bubba. And he said, that's amazing, And since you own a house, logic dictates that you have a wife. That's Betty May, says Bubba. This is incredible, Bubba was catching on to this whole thing, this logic stuff. And finally, since you have a wife, logically I can assume that you are heterosexual, said the professor. You're absolutely right. Well, that's the most fascinating thing I ever heard. I can't wait to take that logic class, Bubba's all excited. Bubba, being proud of the new world opened up to him, walked back into the hallway there, where his friend's waiting. And so, what classes are you taking? Asked his friend. Math, history, and logic, Bubba told him. He said, what in tarnation is logic? Asked his friend. Let me give you an example, says Bubba. Do you own a weed eater? No, his friend says. Bubba says, well, you're queer, ain't you? All right, I guess we better go play the DRO or well, I got one more little thing to tell you about. I think I'll tell you about that, and then we'll go do the DRO. And I know I'm dragging it out. Well, in the particular time that I was going to walk about in the wilds of Texas there, I went to Arlington, which is between Dallas and Fort Worth, and I bought myself some silica sand and some bentonite clay, all of the exact proper, varieties to cast aluminum with. And I bought it from a professional foundry supply there. And the stuff was dirt cheap, it's $36 for 350 pounds of material. And I can just imagine what it would cost to ship that by UPS or something. I know I've seen the places online, and they had some $100 and something prices on small quantities of green sand already mixed up for you. That's kind of high. At least it seems to me to be. But while I was driving along, headed to that other end of Texas, I had a couple of CDs that I had made, and one of them was a little novella, I guess you'd say it is, by Voltaire, and it's called Candide. And it was. Well, I'll get into what it was in a minute. But I was, after listening to it, I realized that I'd have liked Voltaire. He's a guy I'd like to know. Although, back in that day in France, I would have probably been too far down the social ladder to be acquainted with him. And he probably wouldn't like any ignorant rednecks anyway. But we have similar views on the world, I've discovered. Anyway, the story about Candide, which I understand means optimist or some such thing as that. We get this young fella who is an eternal optimist, and he's got a teacher who is a professional philosopher named Professor Pangloss, and Professor Pangloss thinks that this is the best of all possible worlds. Well, so he teaches that load of baloney to our buddy Candide, and Candide's living in this castle with Baron Thunderdome or something another in Westphalia, and this Baron has got 75 quarters of his pedigree. Back in those times, instead of having the dogs pedigreed, the people were pedigreed. And so he was too good to associate with most people. And actually, Candide was his I guess his grandson, because his daughter was one of his daughters was Candide's mother, as near as I can make out. But she wouldn't marry the guy's father because he only had like 50 quarters of his ancestry worked out, and of course wasn't good enough for her, so she didn't marry him. But Candide gets mixed up with this gal, Cunegonde, who is the Baron's daughter, and the Baron kicks him out, and he goes forth into the world where he gets cheated and robbed and beaten, and all manner of misfortunes befall him because he's, so virginal and ignorant, and the boy shouldn't be out on his own. Uh, but he stays an optimist right up until about the very end, when one of his friends, who is an absolute total pessimist, convinces him that maybe this really isn't the best of all possible worlds. And he goes through all, like I say, tons of misfortunes. When he gets kicked out of the castle, he goes into the land of the Bulgars, and they beat him and run him through the gauntlet a bunch of times, and they almost strip all the flesh off his bones with the whips. And the king comes by and realizes he's totally ignorant, and tells them to take him down to the doctor and get him cured up. And then they stick him in the army, and then the army goes and attacks the bunch that he just came from, and and it's just he deserts that. And anyway, he goes through this whole novel, like I say, being cheated and shot and stabbed, and all this, wanting to marry the beautiful Cunegonde. And in the end, she's not beautiful anymore, but he's a man of honor and wants to marry her anyway. He's thought he killed her brother, but he got fixed up by a doctor. In fact, that's one of the things that happens a lot in this novel. People get killed, or apparently do, and later on you come to find out, no, they weren't really dead yet. Somebody discovered them as they were hauling them to the graveyard or something, that they were still alive, and took them to the doctor, and they got fixed up and so on. So a lot of the people that get killed really aren't, except for all the peasants that get killed in the wars and such. And I don't guess it's a book that everybody would want to read, but I got to wondering one day. I'd heard about it, off and on. And I thought, here I am, 70 years old, and I haven't even read this book that's been out since 1770 something. And so I didn't want to read it. I got it from LibriVox as an audio book. You get all kinds of free books from LibriVox, and I highly recommend them. So if you want to find out what Candide's about, go to LibriVox, download the audio book, or If you don't like to listen to people read stories to you, download the ebook and read it yourself. It's all free. And while you're there, you'll find tons upon tons of other free books. So today we're going to do a different function with the Tech 3i from the M-Tech DRO. We're going to do an ellipse, and it says ellipse be allotted a hole, and it says function Tech 3i, the god of the earth, who points out that the obvious. Well, you guys have read that before. Anyway, it's not probably as crucial as to which way X and Y positive is this way as it was for the arc, but it's still best for them if you got them right, because you don't want to, if you want an oval that goes like that, you don't want to discover you got an oval that goes like that, you know. And so what we're going to do here, we're going to take this little piece of wood and pretend it's metal. We've got our X and Y zero set for the middle of it, and we're going to come up here and tell this thing that we want to do an ellipse. Okay, now I'll move you in here nice and close so that so you can watch the DRO really good. And we're going to zoom up here so it pretty much fills the screen. Alright, so here's the ellipse function here, and they want to know what is the X radius. Alright, now I've got a piece of wood there that's about 3.5 inches by 5 inches, so we're not going to make a really big ellipse. So our X radius is going to be, say, 1 3/4 inches. That'll be 1.75. We'll enter that. Then the Y radius. So the Y radius is going to be down there pretty small as well, and I think maybe, say 1 1.25 inches would be about right. So we've got an X radius of 1.25 inches. Now they want to know the incept angle. In other words, what angle are you going to start on? I like to start on 0, and that's at the right end of my piece of wood, is where right now where the DRO thinks 0 angle is. If I change the X and Y coordinates, they'd probably think 0 was in the direction back towards the column. But it's convenient for me to consider the 0 angle of the circle to be at the right hand side of this piece of wood. So we've got 0. Just input the end angle. Alright, now we've got to do a little calculating here. We've got 360 degrees, so, and we're going to do 8 holes. So we're going to divide that by 8, and we're going to get let's start over. That didn't come out very good, did it? Nah. Alright, 360 divided by 8 is 45. Okay, undoubtedly that comes out right. So you want to take 360 degrees and subtract 45 from it, and your end angle is going to be 315 degrees. If you don't do that right, it won't put the holes in the right place. So I'm going to put in 3, 1, 5, enter. It wants how many holes are you going to make? Well, we're going to make 8 holes, so put in 8, and then it tells us where to go for our first hole. So now it's time to move the camera and set it so you can watch the hole drilling. And I've got another little camera I'm going to try to use so you can watch the DRO. We'll see how that works out. As you might can see here, we're starting right in the middle of that little piece of wood, and my light will stay in position. There, that might be better. Alright, so we're starting with X and Y 0 right in the middle of the wood. our DRO tells us that the first hole, and what we got to do, of course, is with every function we got to zero these things out. So for the first hole, we got to take the x-axis down to 0. And I'm slowing down a little. Oh, I still passed it up, didn't I? Well. Since this is a demonstration, I'm not going to be a fanatic about, I'm not going to be a real fanatic about how it ends up there, whether it's a tenth or so off. I marked this thing, this is the 0 angle here. So we're going to drill a little hole right here on the 0 angle. And I'm going to see if, where's my magic marker? I'll put a little black mark there. Well, that's hole number 1. I'm going to put, in fact, I'll put a 1 out there. Now we'll go to hole number 2. And remember, this isn't a circle, this is an ellipse. Alright. Hole 2 says we've got to go this way. Alright, just a tiny little overrun there. I'm going to let it go at that. Alright, take the y-axis to 0. That's pretty close. Alright, so back to hole number 2. Mark that with our felt marker. Put a 2 there. Okay, we got to move on now to hole number 3. All right. Ready for hole 3. Hopefully that camera didn't fall off of there. We aim for hole 3. Put a little, well, a little magic marker there, and that's 3. And I may wind up just fast forwarding through all this stuff for you guys. Hole 4. I'll move the Y first just because it's handy. And of course we will zero out the X. Okay, now this is hole number 5. I'm sorry, it's hole 4. Got carried away. Drilled it a little bigger too. Oh well. Anyway, that's hole 4. And I'm gonna, I think probably at some point I'm gonna start fast forwarding this thing. So what I'll do is I'll just point you down here and we'll move to hole 5. Okay, as you can see, we went all the way around. We drilled 8 holes. Let's clean it up like that. As you can see, the X and Y zero was in the middle. Our starting angle of 0 degrees was to the right, and so we bored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 holes in an elliptical pattern. Now, the more holes you drill there, the more obviously elliptical that is, but if you take a little scale and you lay it across here, you can see it's almost 4 inches that way, and it's almost 3 inches this way. So quite obviously that's an ellipse. So that's the function for today. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment to say what I did right or wrong here. You know, everybody needs a little feedback. We'll see you later.